I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think these are my favourite episodes to record. Transfer specials. I just sit down, play the summer transfer window for an hour or two, and make rash decisions that you get to criticise when you watch the video. It's a good time for everyone. We're here with Arsenal. We're looking to take a step forward after season 1, and it all begins today. Let's do this. Yes, folks, how is it going? Welcome back to the Arsenal Beta Save. Today is, I guess, the start of season number 2. It's episode number 11, and we are here on the 30th of June as the transfer window, well, I want to say it's getting into full swing. It's kind of already in full swing. We've been wheeling and dealing early, and I suppose we should start off with some sales, because I talked about it at the end of last episode as we planned for next season. I had some ideas of players I'd like to move on. Good news, we were able to move on some of them. Eddie Nketiah has left the club. He has joined newly promoted Watford for £17.5 million. A player who played 12 games in the league for us last year, did have 3 starts in those, just really didn't impress me. Didn't seem like he was going to be good enough. As a result, we've moved him on. I think £17.5 million is some good money though. Elsewhere, Mohamed El-Neni has also left the club. We discussed this one last time. The bid was on the table. That's gone through. £7.5 million for a player who was largely on the fringes, barely even made the bench for us. Is good money. And well, let me tell you now, the sales do not end there. Matt Turner, backup goalkeeper, is leaving. He is heading to Milan. We've agreed a £10 million deal for him. He was our backup goalkeeper. I've already replaced him though. We'll talk about that in a mo. Another American who's left the club is Austin Trusty. He is going to be heading to Houston. In the end, £1.8 million for a player who's never going to play in the first team. It was just a case of selling some of these players to generate revenue. Another backup player that's left us is Cedric, 31 years old. He is going to be heading to Roma tomorrow, £5 million. He didn't really play for us. He's off the wages. Little bit of cash for him. Not going to complain. Reece Nelson's deal to Villarreal has also been confirmed. He leaves tomorrow. 17 million or 15 million? 15.25 million. Good money. We'll take that. One last sale. It's a biggie. Thomas Partey is leaving the club. £38 million received from Barcelona. He's 30 years old. He's a player who is injury prone. And with those two things in consideration and his 11 natural fitness, I just feel like he's about to hit his decline and it's better to sell him whilst we can. £38 million for him, I think is a really, really good bit of money. It's 30 million upfront and then 8 million in 6 months' time. Ultimately, he is the highest earner at the club by about £50,000. It was skewing some of the wage demands that our other players had. And with him now leaving the club, it means that our next highest earner is Saka on 125k. As you can already see, I've demoted all the players who are leaving the club into the under-21s. There's a few more players I would like to sell soon. Nicola Pepe, Pablo Mari, Nuno Tavares, Balogun. 4 players out on loan that I can't sell right now. But all these sales are starting to add up. And as a result of that, we have £143 million in the transfer budget to spend right now. As I already alluded to, I have made one signing already. If we just go to our transfer history and then look at the previous season, he's tacked on at the bottom. I have picked up from relegated Brentford, David Raya. This man, a really, really good goalkeeper. We signed him for a measly £7 million. He comes in to be our backup. He is the replacement for Turner. I think if we compare the two players here, the man in blue, we've sold for 10 million. The guy in green we've bought for 7 million. It's just a good bit of business for us. And well, another bit of business we could be doing right now to kick off the transfer special is Ivan Toney, another player from Brentford. It turns out Brentford are becoming our feeder team. Discussed Ivan Toney last episode. I feel like we lack a bit of a target man, a bit of a plan B striker, someone of a slightly different mould. Ivan Toney is 27 years old, perfectionist personality, fantastic for tutoring, 16 determination, I love. He is happy to join us. We've agreed a deal that can total, I think, 17 million, but at least initially it's 7.5 million with 5 million in instalments. I think it's a sensible transfer, not the craziest wages. He's English and homegrown in nation, which is useful for European competitions. And given the fact he's going to be in and out the team a lot, I like the fact he's consistent. I feel like strikers especially, they often need regular first-team football to get up to speed, to stay match fit and to stay sharp. I'm hoping with Ivan Toney, who is absolutely insanely consistent. He's very consistent in game. Last year in FM, he had 20 consistency out of 20. And I think for a backup striker who will be getting infrequent minutes, knowing that you can throw him on, and more often than not, he's going to play to his absolute maximum ability, it's just a very good signing to have. And with that in mind, I'm going to confirm this deal. Ivan Toney is joining Arsenal. Now, some people will look at that and say, He's not a Champions League quality striker. Ultimately, though, he's coming in to be an impact sub, and I think he's going to be a really, really useful player for us. You can see here, it's 12.5 million. Subject to conditions, it can rise. With Partey leaving the club, the average age of the squad has dropped a little bit. And in fact, you can see with our two new additions, Raya and Tony, they are the oldest players in the team at the age of 27. Players only just entering their prime, really. So with the additions of Tony and Raya, this is how our squad looks at the beginning of this transfer special. It's a good team. It's a strong team. I think when you look at it, there's a lot to like. Obviously, Rodrigo has now officially joined the club. He is donning the red of Arsenal. Right now, our squad, I think, is a little on the smaller side. It is a team of 23. In terms of the current team, you can see here what I think my best 11 is. I did look at the possibility of selling Gabriel, much like Partey. We discussed it last episode. In the end, there wasn't that much interest. I have now promised that I'm not going to sell him. I think ultimately we don't really need that much more money. We've got £135 million in the transfer budget. That should be more than enough to add the 2, 3, maybe 4 star players I'd like to maybe go out and find this year. You might have noticed I'm thinking of changing the centre mid roles this year. Instead of a ball-winning midfielder, going with a centre mid on defend. It's a role that Barreiro can play really, really well. If we just sort by position, I think it goes without saying the centre mid is maybe one area that is a little bit of a question mark. Wouldn't mind adding someone else new there. We have currently 5 players who are homegrown at club. One of them is Charlie Patino, who at least right now I'm penciling in to have a bit of a squad role in the team this year. Depending on our additions, he's a player we might look to loan out, much like last year where he played in the Championship. Another year in the Championship wouldn't be bad for him. But besides that, we have obviously 5 homegrown in club players. We also have 4 homegrown in nation players, which is all we need for the Champions League. So we can tick that tick box off. It's not like we're going to be looking for some Arsenal youth team rejects this transfer window. So right now we've got a squad of 24 players, including Patino. Realistically, we're looking, as I said, at a handful of new signings. I'd quite like to add a little bit more at the back, and I have got my eye on someone already. Now, the man that I've been eyeing up is currently transfer listed. He plays in Liga, a name that might be familiar with you football fans out there. Jean-Claire Todibo, the French centre-back, is 23 years old. His current value is 58 million. It's not a small amount of money. I'd like to negotiate that down if I could, but he's currently transfer listed by Nice. He had a good year with them, and I think he could be a top quality addition to our team. If we just compare him with Gabriel, he's just a more complete player. Physically, he's a better player. He's 23 years old. His positives, I mean, he's consistent, loves important matches, really adaptable. His physicals are outrageous. I wish his acceleration was a little bit better, if I'm really nitpicking. But even at £58 million, I think that's probably a transfer I'd be more than happy to make. If we look at things here, we've got 135 million. So if I am only looking at maybe 3 new signings, I kind of want to make this man one of them. Now, I have waited and waited until I came back to record the episode to do this. We're going to make an initial bid. They want 58 million. I'm going to try and lowball them slightly and just bid 42.5. They've asked for 55. I don't want to do a sell on. Can we go a little bit lower? Can we go... I'd quite like 45. 58 they're asked. They really want the 58, don't they? You know what? I'm going to put in a non-negotiable offer of 48.5. Ultimately, we do have the money to go and make that move if we want to. I don't really need to haggle them down, but I'd like to save pennies if we can. There were a couple of other centre-backs transfer listed, the likes of Kanate and also Lissandro Martinez, but I don't think they are quite as good as Todibo. And also, their asking prices versus their ability just mean that they don't really make sense as players to go for. I have been keeping a close eye on Manchester United though, because of course Thomas Tuchel has kept his job somehow, but they missed out on European football. And as a result of that, there's some quite good players in their ranks who, well, probably aren't all that happy about missing out on Champions League football, but that we could potentially pounce for. One man who absolutely makes no sense to sign when I look at my current team, but I kind of, and I don't know why, I love the idea of trying to sign him, would be Marcus Rashford. Is that mad? 25 years old. It's not like we need more attacking options, but I feel like in terms of just getting more and more goal scorers, He could be a really good addition to the team. I'm going to get a scout report. We'll see what they say. I think the biggest issue when it comes to a lot of Manchester United players actually is just their asking prices. Hundreds of millions of pounds for players that if they were playing in any other league would be that little bit more affordable. Now, one thing that I did to help with recruitment was I did go through all the teams who were relegated and just manually scout all their players. Just holding shift, clicking to the top, clicking to the bottom, getting them all selected, right click, scout report. That's why we have the scout reports and all these players. It's one of the reasons why I've gone for David Raya and Ivan Toney. And I did this across many, many leagues. There is one man who caught my eye, who was actually relegated with Bologna, and it's Wisdom Ame. He is listed, or he was listed, as their hot prospect. They have just been relegated from Serie A. And with that in mind, I think he could be a really interesting player to try and snap up. You know what? We'll ask his agent. What does his agent think? He wouldn't be interested. I'm going to try not to take that rejection personally. But yeah, one thing I definitely recommend is that when you're kind of at the end of the season, especially if you're bargain hunting a little bit, look across the teams and leagues you've got loaded. Look at the teams that got relegated from those leagues. You can often find some really good players. I'd argue that Raya and Toney fall into that bracket. Ivan Toney, not a cheap signing, but I don't know, if he wasn't playing for a relegated side, I think we'd be looking at 20 to 30 million, especially in kind of post-Brexit Premier League football. If you've played Football Manager this year, or indeed in the last few years, you know how outrageous the premiums teams put on players are. I think Ivan Toney and also Raya as our kind of backup goalkeeper on £7 million and reasonable wages as well, only 65,000. Great examples of the kind of players you can pick up through relegated teams. So we've made a bid on Todibo. I've talked you through all the players who have already left and all the players who are about to leave in a continue or two's time. You can see here, lots of players leaving. We'll see them all on one nice news inbox item just to recap it all. But ultimately, we're going to have a lot of money in the bank. And apparently, we've got the achievement for a record sale. Is Thomas Partey really our record sale? Or have we just set a record for total sales? Lots of players leaving us here. Lots of players that we've received good money for. The fans, apparently, they're a bit lukewarm on a lot of these. They'll get over it with time. They'll see the greater vision eventually. And in fact, Thomas Partey is a new record sale. Is it mad? That seems crazy to me that Fabregas is Arsenal's biggest sale in their history at £29.5 million. Does that seem insane to anyone else? I just assumed it would be someone more recent. So all those sales have gone through. You can see £68 million raised. Worth noting, a couple of young prospects have also left the club, with most of these just players whose contracts I wasn't going to renew. They lack that little bit of something that I think they're going to need to ultimately make it at the level that we play at. I wish them all good luck in their future careers. It's just not going to be with us. So maybe it's just me who does this. You might have noticed it earlier. When I've already got players who I've agreed to sell or I'm in the process of selling, I just demote them down to the under-21s. The under-21s now does look a little bit less cluttered, but there's a handful of players here who have come back from loans. Nicolas Pepe was on loan at Nice last year. Pablo Mari was on loan at Monza in Italy. We also have Nuno Tavares and Balogun, who are also on loan in France, in France incidentally. They all have values that are reasonable, and they all have ability which, let's be frank, isn't going to see them get in our first team. So I think we're going to try and cash in on these guys right now. Now, in Pepe's case, he's on £140,000 a week. He is now our highest earner at the club. I'm going to offer him out for £28.5 million. That said, because of his wages, I'd probably be willing to accept a little bit less. With players, I tend to offer them out for a little bit more than perhaps what their transfer value is. And then if there's no interest, you can just lower it down slightly. That said, one little tip. If you're desperate to sell a player and it's just a case of you want to get rid of them, if you just leave this unspecified, it'll just open up as many bids as possible. That said, it's the start of the transfer window. We don't need to be too picky with sales just yet. Going to just try and cash in on each of these players. Now, Balogun of all these players, is one who I did consider keeping on, but he's a bit similar to Nketiah in the sense that he's a very pacey player, limited technicals, his mentals aren't that great either. His loan spell in France, whilst good, I think presents an opportunity to try and sell him whilst he's hot. I just feel like he's a little bit away from our first team. He's 21 years old as well, so it's not as if there's a whole load of years of development left ahead of him. And if we just compare him to our new backup in Ivan Toney, I think you can see why if I was able to sell Balogun for more than what I spent on Toney, I'd be relatively happy with that as a bit of business. Okay, somewhat surprisingly, we've had bids on all of the players. Inter are the first team to bid. They've bid on Pepe. They've only offered 16 million. Our initial transfer value for him was 28. I'm going to be a bit cheeky here and offer 25. There is a pretty good chance that they just say no thanks to this and walk away. If that happens, we'll offer him out for a little bit less and just kind of negotiate our way with Inter. In an ideal situation, I hit this big button and they go, yeah, we'll do that. Love you, Inter. Thank you very much. Okay, that's one down. Pablo Mari, lots of offers of 5.5 million, but they want us to pay some of his wages. Sassuolo, the one exception to the rule there. I think we're just going to sell on Mari. At this point, he's 29 years old. We have lots of better centre-backs compared to him. He's the kind of player who I'm happy just to cash in on. Tavares has had a few interesting bids. Juventus have offered £23.5 million outright. I think I'd be out my mind not to take this. Whilst he's undeniably not a bad player, we have the likes of Tierney, we have the likes of Zinchenko, players who I think fundamentally are just better options in the same position. Tavares, he's a little bit of a pace merchant with not a great deal else. And yeah, 23 million? Yeah, I'm taking that. We are making mad money for our players. Balogun as well. Bournemouth have offered 20 million. I really hope he wants to go to Bournemouth. If he turns that down, I'll be sad. If all these deals go through, we're going to be making like another £75 million. That'd be outrageous. Okay, so our initial bid for Todibo's been rejected. It's only 10 million shy of what they are asking for him. I'm going to try and negotiate a tiny bit off what they were asking for, but I think we are just going to bite the bullet and bid 58 million. I feel like those deals that we've just agreed to with Balogun and co, they are the last little push I need to convince me that I should go and sign this man. I'll be honest, I think he's a £58 million centre-back anyway. His current wages are so low at Nice as well. Somewhat optimistic his demands for us won't be too unreasonable. Right now, we are the only team that have made a bid. We're the only team that are interested as well. I did notice at one point, I think Real Madrid and Newcastle were in for him, but they've gone cold. I want to believe we can get this one across the line nice and early. Am I an idiot for wanting to sign Marcus Rashford? I just think it'd be quite a fun transfer. I'm kind of curious about his wage demands. His current contract at Manchester United is not a small one. You know what? I'm selling Nicolas Pepe and Balogun for a combined 45 million. If I could get Rashford in for that cost, that would feel like a good bit of business. I say that. I don't think it's looking likely based off the initial negotiations. I'm going to offer 60 million and see if they take it. They want a little bit more. He's just not worth it, is he? You know what? I'm not going to do it. I just want to know how much he might ask for in wages. Let's go find out together. The board feel uneasy about it. They want to cancel the deal. Can we not cancel the deal? I don't actually want to do it. I just want to know how greedy he is. Please reconsider blocking it. Oh, thank you. The board don't want us to sign Manchester United players. I don't actually want to sign him. It's a prank. Also, Todibo, incredibly interested in negotiating terms. 92 to 120k wage demands. That's what I want to see. I have got to be a little bit wary that between White, Saliba, Gabriel and Todibo, we are going to have 4 very good centre-backs all expecting first-team football. There might be a little bit of unhappiness to manage there. I'm going to try and get rid of the yearly wage rise and international rise. And I'm just going to offer 110 outright. I'm hoping he'll just accept this. He hasn't. Can we go back down to 110? 110. Thank you. Really good contract as far as I'm concerned. 5-year deal, 23 years old. Best years ahead of him. Oh, I'm thinking this one might just happen without any drama, which would be quite pleasant. Because I feel like often in Football Manager, you spot a player you really want, and then they just go to someone else. I mean, cue someone else now to make a bid for him, and me to feel really sad. So I've just been called into our recruitment meeting to kick off the transfer window. But of course, with the new squad planner, we can do a bit of planning here. Okay, I've actually taken some time to set up the squad planner. Very satisfying to do, but also the kind of thing that I can't talk and do at the same time. It's very concentration intensive. In terms of goalkeepers, obviously, Ramsdale, Raya, and then Runnison as our backup. A right back, we've got Tomiyasu, Mukiele, and then Maitland-Niles. Talked about Maitland-Niles a little bit last episode. He is a bit of a utility man. Last year, started 31 Premier League games for Southampton Southampton, given the fact he's homegrown at club and he can just play in a load of different positions, I think he's just a very valuable player for us to have in our team as a bit of a squad option. So for that reason, I think we will use him this year as a bit of a backup in that regard. He can play on the left and right-hand side. Speaking of that left-hand side, of course, we've got Zinchenko and Tierney. In at centre-back, Todibo, if he joins, he'll just go to the top of the pile right away. Probably start alongside Ben White, although Gabriel is the one left-footed centre-back of these options. What it has made me realise is that we have got a few other, I guess, plan Bs. Tomiyasu Mukiele, of course, players we view as right-backs but can play through the middle. Omar Rekik is one player who I kind of just... I'll be honest, I kind of forgot he existed. He's okay, but at 21 years old, he's not all that great. I think he falls into a similar bracket to some of the players who were out on loan last year, who have come back, and realistically, they're never going to play for us. So, you know what? I'm going to transfer list him. I'm going to try and get a little bit of money for him. Anything over 7 million, to be honest, would be quite pleasant because I kind of forgot he was there. It's like when you find some money down the back of your sofa. Like that's the equivalent. I've been like, oh, I've got a Rekit down there. So we're going to try and sell him on. Over in the attacking area of the pitch, of course, in striking positions, we've got a few options now. We've got Rodrigo, Gabriel Jesus. We've also got Ivan Toney, who's now here. Bit of an impact sub option, but a very good player nevertheless. Of course, Martinelli and Andreas can also slot in there in an emergency. At centre attacking mid, we've got Odegaard, Smith-Rowe and Vieira. Out on the right-hand side, we've got Saka, Vieira and Zinchenko. Rodrigo could play there, but he is right-footed. The other three players are all left-footed. On the other wing, we got loads of options. Obviously, Jesus, more often than not, going to be playing as the striker. But behind him, Rodrigo, Andreas and Martinelli going to be fighting for this position. I feel like I should shuffle the order of this slightly to what it's most likely going to be like. The one area of the pitch where I think undeniably we're lacking a little is the centre of the midfield. Of course, we've got Barreiro and Viagra, who are definitely our more defensive midfielder options. Viagra is a little one-dimensional in his play, the kind of player who I could maybe look to loan out this year. Still got maybe a little bit of a question mark over, is he ever going to be good enough for our first team? We signed him last year because we needed a player there, and at £6.5 million, he represented pretty good value for money. There is some interest in him, so, you know, maybe a player we could cash in on. Probably going to double our money if we did want to sell him. But ultimately, just the centre mid position needs a little bit of depth. We've got Barreiro, Viagra, and then Maitland-Niles in kind of the ball-winning midfielder areas. Zinchenko, Santos, and Patino, players who could play on the left. So having done all that planning, I think the one area of the pitch where I have question marks, and I think it's shown quite nicely here, is just that centre midfield area. I like Barreiro and I like Zinchenko as starters, but there's probably room for a little bit more quality. And we've got the money to add some quality. So, yeah, we're going to look at that area. And with that in mind, I've just realised that from this screen here, I can actually just create a focus, can't I? An ongoing focus. I'm looking for a centre mid to play there. I want a box-to-box midfielder as well. Go find me one of those, please, staff. The only player currently with a contract expiring in the first team for next year is Maitland-Niles, so I'm not going to worry too much about sorting his contract out just yet. A couple of players in the youth team that we'll worry about nearer the time. Some of these players have really good ability. Some of them, like Nicola Pepe, we're trying to cash in on ASAP. I love the fact that right now my staff are telling me that we need to transfer list players because we can't afford their wages. The only reason we can't afford their wages is because all those players have just come back from their loans. Players like Pepe, and they're on £140,000 a week. Suddenly, all these players that we're in the process of selling have returned, and their wages really have added up quite quickly. I need to get them out. If we do need to rejig the budgets, we can. Not going to panic about that right away. Okay, recruitment meeting done. I've set up the planner. We've got a few new focuses on that centre mid area. Going to be very interested to see if we get any players thrown our way off the back of it. I've only hit continue twice, but suddenly the two midfield focuses I set up have just given me a load of results. It actually looks like I've unintentionally searched for the same thing twice because I never defined the role. So all our scouting team have gone out and just found the same list of players. They've probably been sharing each other's homework. There's some interesting centre mid options here though. Players like Kessie would be a great addition to the team. He is actually ridiculous. How does he compare to Barreiro? I mean, compared to Barreiro, he makes Barreiro look a bit rubbish, doesn't he? Does Frank Cassier. He's very good. 26 years old, value of 36 to 51 million. Playing for Barcelona. Obviously, we've just sold them Partey. Will they do us a deal and just sell us Cassier at a good price? 38 million, but then they want installments of 27 million. That's not happening. But I'll tell you what, I'm intrigued. 48.5? They've accepted that. 48.5. I appreciate I've clicked on the first player in this list, But Kessié is mad. Like, in real life, he's an insane player. I'm a big fan of watching him play. But in game, he's just a bit of a monster. Look at his mentals. Look at his physicals. His wages hopefully won't be too unreasonable. I might have just bought the first man I've clicked on, but I think he's probably the best player we're going to spot. I did just have a little look through the rest of the players on this list. The only player that even comes close for what we're looking for is Marino, who plays for Sociedad. But with his value and his actual ability being, let's be honest, not as good as Kessié's, I think I'm just going to go and get Kessié. I'm sorry to Barreiro, because I only signed him in January, but I think he's going to be more of a squad player than I anticipated. Apparently, Kessié has doubts about discussing terms. Apparently, his wage demands are going to be between 170 and 215k. Should we go and talk to the agent? Should we go chat? Can I chat? Is it too late to talk to his agent? I think it is. Well, we'll just start the negotiations and see what he says. I'm happy for him to be an important player. What are his wage demands going to be? I mean, initial thoughts from our staff were it's going to be over 150k, which I don't really want to go near. Our current highest earner is Saka on 130, so I don't really want to go above and beyond that. That said, we have money to spend. It's not like we're short on change. We really have managed to get some really good money for squad players, so we have got the potential to go a bit bigger on a player like Kessié. I really would like to get him down to 130. I don't like the sell-on percentage either. He wants 150. Can we do 130, but I'll give you bigger bonuses in terms of signing on fee and stuff. Can we do that? 130, £11 million signing on fee. It means his total fee is going to be around, what, 60 million? But I feel like it's probably just worth it. He is absolutely outrageous in game. So Rekik, who I talked about finding behind a sofa, I think he's heard me talking about that. He's now asked me about the fact that he's, well, considering his options at the end of his contract in a year. We didn't get any initial bids for him, so I'm just going to offer him out for unspecified. Given the fact it's very likely he's now going to leave on a free, if we could get any money for him this summer, we'll take it. And Freiburg have made a bid, 3.4 million up front, 3.4 million in six monthly installments. You know what? I'm going to take that. I didn't even know he existed as a player before 5 minutes ago. Any money I'm kind of happy with. Good news, Tavares has agreed to join Juventus, 23.5 million. Bad news, Florent Barragan has turned down a bid from Bournemouth of 20 million. So he won't be leaving for 20 million yet. I'm going to lower the asking price slightly, relist him. Does anyone want to make a bid for him? Doesn't look like it, but Pepe is going to leave the club in the last year of his contract. I think to get 25 million for him, that's quite good business. Thank you, Inter Milan. Really appreciate you. This is some good money being made. And to top it all off, our bid for Rashford's been accepted. He expects a wage of between 300 and 375k. That can't be correct, can it? That can't. I refuse to believe that's right. I'll give him the 140. That would make him the highest earner. He actually wants 300. Get me out of here. No offers for Balogun. Apparently the most that teams are prepared to pay is 3.1, 2.8 or 1.2 million. I still can't believe that Bournemouth bid as much as they did at 20 million. You know what? I'm going to lower it down. To be honest, if I get anything over 10 million, I'd probably take it for him. Okay, Shakhtar have come in with a bid of 14 million. They want me to pay a little bit of his wages, but it's not a significant amount whatsoever. I'm going to accept that bid and issue an ultimatum to the other teams. Elsewhere, Todibo looks like he's going to be joining us. There's no way he doesn't get a work permit. This is going to be big. Okay, Pablo Mari departing us for 5.25 million. It's more money in the bank. And elsewhere, Kessié waiting on a work permit for his move. There's part of me that feels like I've been a bit rash with this bid, just throwing the money at him, getting the signing done. But equally, I just feel like it's a bit of a no-brainer. We've got so much talent elsewhere in our team. When I was looking at our squad in the squad planner, the one area of the pitch that worried me was that centre mid area. And I think it's absolutely undeniable. Kessié just solves that issue. So Todibo and Kessié on work permits now. If they both join us, it's going to cost us in the region of £120 million. We're still going to have like £60 million left. I could go and find another player as good as these two. Things you love to see. Jean-Claire Todibo joining the club. £59 million. We're going to confirm that. That is an absolute no-brainer. And And I'll tell you what, I think I'm having an absolute scorcher of a transfer window. Like, genuinely, I think we're doing some really, really good business here. Kind of forgetting the fact that we've also signed Rodrigo. We've got in some young quality players. Kessié obviously a little bit on the older side at 26. But in the grand scheme of things, he's a player just entering his prime. I feel like everything's coming up Millhouse right now. Bit annoying this. Maitland-Niles, who I think this year will still be one of our squad players, especially because he makes up that fourth homegrown at-club player. He's told me that he wants to leave at the end of his contract. I really want to keep him at the club. I really want him to stay. But he said, I'm off now, bye. So I don't think he's going to listen to me when I offer him a contract. Yeah, he doesn't want to talk to me. I mean, I hope that by playing him a little bit, we can convince him to stay. But at the same time, of all the players in our current first team who could possibly leave us, he's probably one of the players I should be less worried about. It just gets better, doesn't it? Kessié is joining us. I think it's Kessié and not Kessie. Someone can let me know in the comments. I get the names wrong either way, let's be honest. It'd be a miracle if I'm pronouncing it right first time. £51 million is going to cost us. One of the world's best centre mids, of course, only joined Barcelona last year. Didn't exactly have a great first year, but I think coming into our team, he can get a lot more first team football, hopefully be a more imperative part of our side. He offers some immediate quality, very consistent, very big game player as well, which is going to be great for us, and adds a little bit more seniority to the team. I talked about it before with Tony and Raya. Kessié, definitely another one of these players who I think can be a really good presence in the changing room. So I think right now our team would look something like this if the season was to start today. Todibo in at left centre-back alongside Ben White. These are two players who are really, really technical and great with the ball at their feet. The only downside is they both prefer to play on a right side in kind of a two-defender setup, obviously both right-footed, but I feel like between them, they've got enough ability that shouldn't obviously hold them back too much. I think Todibo is absolutely class. Of course, Kessié coming into the team to play as a centre-mid on defend. I think to start the season, if it was to start now, Rodrigo would be on the left, but of course, this final third has so much competition. You look at the bench now, Emil Smith-Rowe, Fabio Vieira, Andreas Schelderup, Martinelli, Ivan Toney. We have a layer of depth across the entire team, actually, when you look at the rest of the bench as well, that just didn't exist last year. And it's kind of impossible not to get a little bit giddy about it. And despite all of that, we might still be selling Rekic for 6.75 million, 3 million of it up front, Balogun for a further 14 million. And as things stand right now, whilst I probably need to rejig this slightly, we've still got a transfer budget of 67 million. I'm not even sure as I sit and look at this team right now where I would put that money. I'll tell you what is absolutely insane to me. We've done all this wheeling and dealing, and it's only the 12th of July. I've only been recording for 12 days. Now, granted, I have actually played quite a lot of Football Manager in terms of length of time I've been playing to do all these transfers, but we're in a really, really remarkably good situation so early on in the summer. It's not quite the £20 million that I wanted, but Balogun is going to leave the club for £14 million. I think in the grand scheme of things, that's still way more than what we should realistically be expecting for him, especially when you consider the Ivan Toney deal, which was a similar amount of money. Balogun leaves us one of a number of players who was in our under-21s we've cashed in on. And I'll be honest, that list of players with absurdly high value that I'm happy to cash in on, it is dwindling a little bit. The only other player who I think maybe falls into that category is Mika Bieref, who is 20 years old. Good English striker. Could I find a spot for him in the first team? I'm not so sure. I'm going to offer him out for an unspecified amount and hope that I don't annoy him too much. He's in the last year of his contract. The one thing I don't want to happen is similar to Maitland-Niles. He tries to run down his contract, but I think it's worth testing the waters. Anderlecht willing to pay £12 million, but that's locked in. PSV, £7 million. I mean, how does he compare with Balogun? I'm very curious now. I'd argue that compared to Balogun, he's a slightly better player. He's 20 years old. Last year of his contract probably isn't helping us cash in on him anymore. I wonder if he'd be willing to sign a new deal. 10,000 to 13,000? I feel like this is the kind of one where I could cash in on him now, but actually we stand to gain a lot more if we get him on a long-term deal, loan him out for a year or two more, get him some regular first-team football, and then potentially off the back of that, we can get a way better deal for him. Sign him to a 4-year contract. Hopefully he agrees to all of that, no problemo. Elsewhere, a few players I've been loaning out, including Caden Edwards here, with maybe the potential of them going out and becoming much better players. I think the reality is that when I look across the Arsenal team, it's a great squad with some good, young, exciting players. There's a lot of players as you go down this list that don't need to be here. I mean, look how big our under-21 is. How many players are there here right now? There's 36. It's too many. Tomiyasu wants a new contract. Martin, can you solve this situation for me? He can't. How much is Tomiyasu on at the moment? £60,000. How much does he want? He doesn't want anything. He was thinking about it. I've asked him how he's doing, and he loves me so much, he's had a change of heart. I mean, that saves me a little bit of the headache, I suppose. One player who I haven't talked about much is Marquinhos. When I first joined the club, he was listed as our hot prospect. I actually loaned him out to Norwich last January. He had a good year for them, and Norwich ended up finishing second and getting promoted. They were keen to loan him again, so we've loaned him back to them. Hopefully, he's going to get the regular first-team football that they promised they'd give him. Closely keeping an eye on his development. At 20 years old, not sure if he's ready for Premier League football, but equally, I'm hoping that Norwich do give him that chance, because I think with that regular first-team football, he could develop and be a very good player for us down the line. So just looking at the transfers out, Patino and Viagra have now gone on loan to Championship clubs. They are two players that earlier on in pre-season, I was thinking I might be able to find a way to get them into the team, but as we've started to conduct our business, as I look at the money that we have remaining, I think ultimately regular first-team football, albeit a step down from us, is going to be the best thing for their development. We will keep a keen eye on them, though. I think they're both players that could play in our first team. With them out and all the current transfers, if we just look at our current squad, it's a team of 23 people. Realistically, we could maybe go up to a squad of 25, but with this core of players I have, I think we've got a lot of versatility. We've got the ability to play a whole host of different shapes, formations, positions. There's very few kind of one-trick ponies in this team, which is nice. But with the money that we've got remaining, £84 million, there is definitely scope, if we so wish, to go out there and maybe add one or two really big first-team players. Now, I say all that and tease you a little bit because I'm going to end today's episode here. I've been sat recording and playing through for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. I've talked quite a lot. I feel like we've crammed quite a lot into the very early stages of the transfer window. And I hope actually today I've been able to explain some of the wheeling and dealing aspects a little bit, especially when it comes to trying to offload our lesser players. There's loads of these players at Arsenal that I'm never going to use and that I think actually we benefit from cashing in on. Hopefully me showing you the process of selecting my team, identifying players I want to get rid of, and showing that process of actually trying to shift them on, provide you an insight that, I don't know, you might be able to apply to your own FM save game. Anyway, next time out, we are going to return for the start of the Premier League season. We are going to be taking on Steven Gerrard's Aston Villa to kick off the year. As things stand, our media prediction is 5th. I'm hoping with maybe a few more additions, maybe with our current squad developing, we're going to be in the top 4 for the predictions come the start of the season. Whether or not that's the case, though, you'll have to come back tomorrow. Let me know what you make of my business when it comes to Todibo, Kessié, maybe even Raya and Tony, if you want to be hypercritical. I think the 2 additions we've made to the first team are crazy good players that whilst we've not spent an insignificant amount of money on, we've actually got on reasonably good contracts. Let me know if you agree down below. Besides that, have a lovely rest of your weekend. Come back on Monday bright and ready. We're going to be starting the season. I hope you're excited for it. I most certainly am. And until then, it's me, Jack, and I'll see you on the next one. I'm out.